Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Unsung Heroes. Today we are going to be talking about none other than Bad News Brown, aka Bad News Allen from Stampede Wrestling, the World Wrestling Federation, New Japan Pro Wrestling. This man has been around, and this man also competed in the 76 U.S. Olympics and won a medal in judo. So, I mean, this dude is no joke. This dude could fight for real. And I remember seeing him. I got to see him at WrestleMania 4 when he won that Battle Royal. He defeated Bret Hart. And then they had that big thing with the trophy in the ring where they busted up the trophy. Man, Bad News Brown, quite a talent, man. And I've been going back and watching these old Stampede shows, and seeing him in his element back then is real interesting. There's something about the guy, man, and he hit you with that ghetto blaster, and it's all over. He knows how to clear a ring. You know what I mean? So, the feud with him and Piper was a little weird. I remember that one. It wasn't, the best match of the night or anything like that. I guess it might have looked better on paper than it did as an actual feud. And I thought it was kind of weird what Piper painting himself or whatever. But Bad News Brown, what else, man? What can I say about Bad News, man? He had a distinctive look. He'd come out to the ring, he'd mean mug you, belly all hanging out, not giving a fuck. And you got to remember the time period this is in, man. This is, the late 80s is when his WWF run was happening, and he was gaining a lot of fame there. Late 80s, man, that's like, New Jack Hustler time period. Other workers like Akeem, the African Dream, and Bad News Brown, I think, should be, immortalized in WWF history. I'm at the point now where I'd rather do the Unsung Heroes episodes on here than watch Monday Night Raw, because I think the product has changed so much. And I have to remember it's okay. It's like WWF has had a great run, a better run than maybe anybody ever has. So I'm going to choose to stick with the WWF era. And if Alan wants to talk about any of the WWE stuff, he can. But I have to stay true to that. But I also have to remind myself that it's okay, man. Most people's best shit is early on in their runs. You know what I mean? Whether it be music, wrestling, sports, whatever. It's just amazing that WWE is still going today. So yeah, Bad News Brown, man. He was trained by the best over in Japan. He's that bull. When it comes to, you know what it is? It's like him and like guys like Too Cold Scorpio that are African American wrestlers that get that Japanese training. There's a certain element of toughness, and the fact that Bad News could do the judo, and I think Scorpio might have even been a boxer before he was a worker. So it's just crazy, man, to see how how do I say it? Wrestling's probably the oldest sport known to man. So to see how different kinds of people do it, Bad News is a different kind of cat, man. You know what I mean? I don't know, man. It's really hard to put my finger on what it is, without talking about, race. Like, Bad News Brown is a bad motherfucker from the hood who's pissed off at the world, and he will fucking beat your fucking ass. So, that is a pretty fucking cool wrestling character. It makes sense. That's what wrestling needs to get back to. It needs to get back to making sense. You know what I mean? We don't want to see people that don't look like they could fight in the wrestling ring. You know what I mean? So, back to Bad News here. I remember that angle he was doing with the sewer rats, too. Going up against Jake Roberts, and they were scaring Bad News with the snakes and shit like that, with the tricks with, He was a guest on one of Mean Gene's interviews, and Mean Gene busted out a package of a snake and scared the shit out of Bad News, man. That was crazy, man. It's just, you know what it is? It's with all the manipulation that goes on in the world when it comes to racial stuff, like forgotten African history and things like that. It becomes so amazing when you see certain kinds of cats that will go along with the wrestling stuff, knowing that it's built on manipulation, but then still knowing how to manipulate it towards the character that they want or the leverage they want with it. It's really, really fucking fascinating shit. And I think Bad News did it just as good as anybody else, man, if not better. There's a lot of good guys, man. There's a lot of good guys in wrestling, man, like Coco Beware, Tony Atlas, Too Cold Scorpio, Ron Simmons in his Farouk days. I always really liked that character. Akeem, the African Dream, Bobo, Butch Reed. I would definitely put Bad News Brown up there with any of these guys in his own way. He had his own way of doing it, and I don't know if Bad News was much of a ribber. You know what I mean? Like playing jokes and shit on the road. But one thing I can tell you is there's something about Bad News that gets me going. I don't know what it is. But that's another episode of the Unsung Heroes. I hope Bad News Brown is remembered well. That's why we do these kinds of shows on the Pro Wrestling Archives. Is we want to make sure that people get that real shit. Peace.